My mother suffers from night terrors. She has for quite a while, but she's getting them more often now, and she also gets them while she's wide awake, which is kind of scary, yet kind of interesting, and sometimes funny. Night terrors. The first time I ever heard my mother scream in the middle of the night was after a hip replacement in the 90s. She was sleeping on the main floor of the house. She was no longer even then going upstairs to go to sleep. I was also on the main level, and she'd had a hip replacement. Of course, I was the one taking care of her, and all of a sudden she just screams bloody murder in the middle of the night. And I was so afraid. I thought I was going to wake up and see her being stabbed by an intruder or something. I mean, it was just awful. And she was just dreaming, so I thought. And it could have been, back then, it could have been just a dream. But I've since learned that after surgeries, things like that, your sleep is disrupted, or just your chemical changes in your body can cause you to have night terrors, which are not necessarily dreams. And I'll talk about that and read some stuff in a little bit. And so because I wasn't aware, I was so pissed off that she scared me like that. I was like, what are you doing? And that passed. And then when she moved in, this is before I had built an addition, so my father was still alive at this point. After my father died, I built my mother addition. I think that's the next time that I remember hearing her scream. And again, I was petrified. I thought something awful was happening to her. Now, she was in an addition, and so I couldn't tell. Did somebody enter her sliding glass door? It was just very scary. And once again, she was just what I thought was dreaming. But this time she had a story. She said that there was a man with a pure white face hovering right above her. And, you know, I passed it off as a dream. You were just dreaming. But those started to continue, and it was almost always the same thing. Something or someone hovering over her. And she was petrified because, you know, she wants to believe in ghosts and things like that. So she was believing that that's what she was seeing, and it would make her mad that I was just brushing it off as a dream. The next time we saw her doctor, I explained to him what was going on. He explained to her that there is such a thing as night terrors, and they're not necessarily dreams. They're there because of, you know, changes, and my father had recently died, so there's that, and just her age, and she was in an addition, not her normal place that she always slept. And I was good with all of that, and sometimes medications can cause it. So we lived with this for years, and every now and then my mother would scream bloody murder, and I was no longer afraid. And it got to the point where I would just say, "You're all right, Ma." I wouldn't even get up to check on her because it just was happening more and more often. As she seemed to be satisfied when she woke up that she just heard me telling her everything was okay, and she would just go back to sleep. Sometimes she would do it again. Then one night before she went into the nursing home, probably a few months before that, she was talking in the living room, in her side of the house, in her living room. I was on my side of the house cutting fabric at a table, and I could hear her mumbling, and then I could hear her talking and saying, "Hello? Hello?" And I was like, she doesn't just say that to me. She wouldn't just say hello when I'm not even in that room. And, you know, if she wants me, she would call me by name. So I got up and I went in there and I'm like, "Who are you talking to?" And she said, "Dolly Parton." I was like, okay. And I was like, "Ma, you know that you're not talking to Dolly Parton, right?" And she's like, "No," she says, "she's right here." And that freaked me out because she seemed to be wide awake. And now I have learned you can be wide awake and have what is called night terrors. It's more like complete exhaustion and that kind of thing. And it's almost like you're just hallucinating or you're a little bit delusional simply because of your life circumstances. And as you get older, there's a lot of things that can make you exhausted. And I will read that to you. So when I went to the doctor the next time with her, I told him about this, and he said, yep, it's very possible that she just was really seeing that. And at this point, it's very hard to convince my mother that it was a dream, because she's aware that she is sitting in her chair. So that went on for a little while. She would call me and tell me there was someone under her chair. Somebody just came in and walked under her chair, which is impossible. So, I don't know. I find it very interesting. That seemed to have stopped for a while. I never had the nursing home tell me that my mother screamed in the middle of the night. She probably did, but they just probably didn't tell me. And then when we moved in this apartment, it started up again. And it's happening quite often, almost every night. She will start talking to someone or screaming and telling me that there's somebody in the apartment and he's right next to her. And then there are people who just float in front of her face. She also has started doing that when she's wide awake. Or again, she is, not sleeping with her eyes closed. She's in her chair. She seems to be wide awake, and she is telling me that she's seeing stuff. So a lot can be playing into this. It can be just an end of life type of thing. I don't think it's that. It can be attention seeking. There can be some of that involved. Now remember, when somebody has a history of doing fucked up stuff, it's very hard to believe them. Now, when I was growing up, my mother loved to scare me with ghost stories, ghosts in our house. I've never really talked about that, but my mother liked to torture me. I mean, in that way, mentally. And she would scream and say she was seeing things. She used to always stand on the kitchen chair and tell me the devil was right next to me because I was a bad girl. Fucking scared the living shit out of me. I used to beg her to get off the chair and to come and get the devil. It's just, I can't even believe that was my life, and I can't believe nobody helped me. I don't think people really knew. So it's hard to just say it's all age related or end of life related, because there can be some of that. Now, for instance, one time she was on the phone with my sister. While she's sitting in her chair talking to my sister, she is telling my sister that there's a person right there next to her chair. And she calls me over to ask me who that person is. And I was like, no, there's no person here, Mom. Now, could that be a night terror, even though it's during the day and she's wide awake? It can be. But then when she finally snaps out of that, I think she likes to play it as though that really happened and we're nuts, not her. So, it's just very involved, and I'm going to read some stuff to you. And I looked up specifically night terrors in elderly, because children have night terrors also. Night terrors are often confused with nightmares. This is homecareassistance.com, just first thing I pulled up. For some seniors receiving home care, especially those with dementia, blah, blah, blah. We're not going to go into that. That's not my mother. It is considered a sleep disorder. If your elderly loved one is experiencing this sleep disorder, it's important to understand the reasons why. It can be that they are suffering from dementia, Alzheimer's. Again, I know some of you want to believe that's what's going on with my mother, but it's not. And sleep apnea. I don't believe she has sleep apnea. I don't hear any signs of that. But it can be other physical health conditions. The majority of seniors experience one or more age-related issues that cause pain and discomfort, like arthritis, restless leg syndrome, constipation, Parkinson's. These can all cause sleep deprivation and extreme fatigue, which can lead to night terrors. Now, my mother, she's elderly. She has a lot of things going on, and I'm sure that could be one of the things that's going on with her. Can be managed with medication. She's not going to go for that. And what else did I see? I guess that's about it. Oh, it did say sleeping in an unfamiliar environment, unfamiliar environment. I don't know if I had said that right. It's not uncommon for seniors who have recently moved to an assisted living or with loved ones to experience sleep disruptions, including night terrors. The different sights, sounds, even smells can be disorienting, especially if your loved one has dementia. So there's a lot of stuff going on. For my mother, she has had a change of scenery, and I really think it's mostly a combination of all those things. I still don't see dementia. I just don't. And if anybody would be around to see it, it would be me. If she ends up, giving me signs of that, I'll be the first one to say it. But I don't see signs of that yet. And I'm convinced now that the fact that she's having these night terrors more often and they're more intense, that doesn't say that it's a sign of dementia for me. It says that she is just aging, and it's a natural thing that is happening with her age and with the physical ailments that she has, including supposedly colon cancer, because that is what got her in hospice, even though they never did any biopsy, no colonoscopy, and stuff like that. So we're not 100% sure. She could just have a big massive mass. My card ran out, so I had to stop there for a minute. Yes, I was saying that she has been diagnosed with colon cancer just based on the fact that she has a mass that I've never seen the records of. I really want to call them and see that for myself. And that she was bleeding, and the bleeding couldn't be stopped. They worked on that, and they were giving her blood, and she was still just bleeding out. And I took her home because they said she had 2 to 3 days a week at most, and that was the beginning of October, and right now we're at the end of February. So she obviously didn't do what they thought she was going to do. And so I don't know what to trust. I don't know if she actually has cancer. It could be just something else. But I think it's all a mixture of things that are causing the night terrors, and I'll just keep you informed. What was her latest one? It was last night. She told me, she woke me up 3 times with it, and it was mostly a woman standing next to her. How scary. I wish that would happen to me. I think that would be fun. But no, and somebody hovering over my face, that would be scary too. All right, I'll just keep you up to date with what is going on, and I'm going to try to be more regular on this channel. It's just hard to do all the things that I want to do and keep up with that, but I'm going to try.